I was devastation. I was depression by the end of that book. Ugh, I wish that when I was in high school, I had a ghost boyfriend from the 1920s that would just go on adventures with me. You know what I mean? I have some books that I'm like really avoiding putting into these categories. Sometimes I get overwhelmed describing why I gave these books 5 stars because they were just like, how do I even put into words what this book made me feel? Hello besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori if you're new, and today we are going to be tier ranking my 5-star reads of 2023. I have read 148 books, and these are the 31 books that I have given 5 stars, and we're gonna tier rank my absolute favorites, why I gave them 5 stars, and just talk about them a little bit. So I hope that you're excited, friends. If you are, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Let's talk about some books. Actually, let's talk about the best books of the year, in my opinion. Okay, I'm going to be recording my computer screen, which you will probably see at this point in the video. So if I'm looking away from where my camera is, it's because I'm looking at my screen as we talk through all of these options. First, let's talk about my tiers that I decided to do. We have infinite stars at the very, very top. I lived this story with these characters. I was there. Oh, you didn't read about me? That's weird, I was there. Writing 8, and therefore so did I. And then the last one is I vibed with these vibes in the moment. You know those books when you give it a 5-star because you're like, I'm enjoying this so stinking much in the moment, but like maybe if you gave it a reread later in time, you might have some slightly different thoughts. Let's start maybe with the books that I gave infinite stars. Like I could reread these books a million times and it's always gonna be a 5-star read for me. And a couple of these 5 stars that I gave this year were rereads, and so The Ballad of Never After falls under that category for me because I love Stephanie Garber to heaven and beyond. Like she is my goddess queen. I worship at her feet. And so I'm also going to put A Curse for True Love into infinite stars because Jax, I never thought that I would be so in love with a blonde love interest, and yet here we are. Stephanie Garber has made me eat my words. The other infinite stars book, this was also a reread for me this year, was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I love that book so much. The vibes. Darlington is another like top book boyfriend of the year. I love him. I literally love him to death. Speaking of Ninth House and the Alex Stern series, I'm going to put Hellbent under I lived this story with these characters. If you watch that reading vlog where I read Ninth House and Hellbent, I was emotionally impacted. And it was a little bit crazy and unhinged. It's just what happened. I have the entire War of Lost Hearts trilogy in this 5-star list, and I just realized that. So I'm going to put Daughter of No Worlds under I lived the story with these characters. I was there because I distinctly remember it's one of the first books that I read in 2023. I read it in January. I had just gotten my Kindle arm. I had it next to my bed. I had my page clicker turner, and I was like, what book should I read? What book should I start off with? I ended up reading Daughter of No Worlds and flew through that book in like 2 or 3 days. I literally have no words. The way that that book consumed me, I can't even deal with it. I'm going to put Children of Fallen Gods under the writing 8, and therefore so did I, because I also love Carissa Broadbent's writing style in these books. Children of Fallen Gods is where we got some very crazy like plot twists. And then Mother of Death and Dawn, I was so emotional. I'm gonna put I lived the story with these characters. I'm going to give A Court of Mist and Fury, that was my other reread of this year. I'm going to put it under infinite stars because it's always going to be a favorite of mine. Divine Rivals, I was there. The way that that book, I was crying. I have a reading vlog for that book as well. I think I have a reading vlog for most of these books actually. I was there. I was devastation. I was depression by the end of that book. I cannot wait for the second book in that series. We're gonna put Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison under the writing 8, and therefore so did I. The 2 books that I've read from Rachel Harrison, I'm blown away by how she writes contemporary fiction, but she tends to put a supernatural twist on it. The other book I've read by her is Cackle. I think I gave that book 4 stars, but Such Sharp Teeth had me laughing out loud, had me so emotionally invested. Like, the writing in that story is just perfection, and I need to read more from Rachel Harrison. I want to read, I think it's called Black Sheep. I really want to read that one in 2024. Also under the writing 8, and therefore so did I, How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. I read The Cruel Prince about 3 years ago now. If you know me, you know that Jude and Carden live in my mind rent-free. I think about them every single day. Every single day, and that's not an exaggeration, but I had yet to read How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. I wouldn't necessarily categorize it into a graphic novel, but like it kind of is. There's very little words on the page, let's just say that. But it's just like the most perfect novella if you finish the Cruel Prince series and you just want to revisit with those characters if they're favorites for you as well. First of all, you have amazing taste. Second of all, read this book. It was so, it was just perfect. Anyways, Hollyback has such good writing in those books. Let's work on the I vibed with these vibes in the moment. I'm gonna put Library of Shadows. It was so cute and so perfect and so vibey. I read it in either September or October. I read it very shortly after it came out, and it was stunning, amazing perfection. It was the perfect YA Dark Academia vibes. The library, I wish that when I was in high school, I had a ghost boyfriend from the 1920s that would just go on adventures with me. You know what I mean? We're also going to put Six Scorched Roses in I vibed with these vibes in the moment. They're not my most favorite couple in the whole world, but Lilith and Vale and their little novella story captured my heart. I thought it was perfection. I read that book so fast, given it's under 200 pages, but still, I vibed. We're also going to put, I think we're gonna put Magnolia Parks under that category as well, because I'm curious if I reread it, if it would have the same emotional impact for me. I believe Magnolia Parks was the first book that I read in 2023. Such a strong start to the year, honestly. Love her writing style as well. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but it definitely worked for me. I'm curious if I reread it, if it would knock down to like a 4-star. Mountains Made of Glass falls into I vibed with these vibes in the moment, because that's a novella that is so spicy. It's a fairy tale retelling. It's done by Scarlett St. Clair, and when Scarlett St. Clair does spice, for me, she does it so well. I lived, I laughed, I loved, I giggled, I kicked my feet. I can't wait for the other books in that series. Slaying the Vampire Conqueror has to go under the writing 8, and therefore so did I. The way I was so gagged by what was going on in that story, I was so shooky. I loved the way that Carissa Broadbent wrote vampires in that specific story. If you watched my Nightborn duet vlogs, you'll know that it kind of went downhill from there for me. However, Six Scorched Roses I did also give 5 stars as well. So I do like Carissa Broadbent's vampires. I guess just not all of her vampire-y couples. However, the couple in Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, perfection. I'm gonna put Zara. I think Zara falls under I vibed with these vibes in the moment, because it was the atmosphere. It was giving the Sailor Moon energy. And if y'all know me, you know I freaking love Sailor Moon so much. And the fact that we got a YA fantasy kind of crafted and based very loosely around that same premise, loved. I can't wait for the other books in the series. Ami, which is the second book, is coming out in 2024, and I can't wait. It is so cute. If you're a YA lover and you're a Sailor Moon lover, I think you would like these books. I'm just curious. It's another one where I'm not sure if I reread it, if I would give it like a 5-star and be so in love with it as I was, but I remember flying through that book. I thought it was so well done. I loved the fantastical elements in it, so she's going there. I have some books that I'm like really avoiding putting into these categories because I do not know where to put Heir of Fire. I think I'm gonna put it under I lived the story with these characters, but also the writing 8, and therefore so did I. Like, it falls so close between those two categories, but I loved Heir of Fire. It has been my favorite book of the Throne of Glass series so far. I just remember being so emotionally invested in every minute, second, word, page that I was reading of that book. It was so good. We'll see if I need to add a category here. Let's see. I'm gonna give Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater infinite stars because if y'all have been following me throughout this entire year or subscribed to me this entire year, how many times have I mentioned Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater? Probably a million bajillion. The banter is bantering. The scream I scrumped when I finished that book, I just love those characters so much. Honestly, I would compare Half a Soul very closely to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, but if they had to go head to head with the banter and the fae-ness of the story, Half a Soul beats Emily Wilde by 1,000,000%. Let's put Legendborn because this is a pretty clear decision. The writing ate and therefore so did I. Legendborn and Bloodmarked, I read both of those this year. The writing is so exquisite, well thought out. The Arthurian lore that's tied in but modernized. It's Tracy Dion's brain. My brain could never. I'm gonna put Flowerheart actually under the writing ate and therefore so did I. Flowerheart is a book that did not get enough hype this year. It came out earlier this year in like March or April. If you love Studio Ghibli and you love a YA fantasy, very wholesome story, you need to read Flowerheart by Catherine Bakewell. This book shook me to my core with its cuteness. If you loved The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O and you loved the vibes of that story, I would strongly encourage you to read Flowerheart. I'm really trying to debate where to put Fourth Wing because I lived the story with the characters. I vibed with the vibes in the moment. I want to give it infinite stars, but I think I'm gonna give it infinite stars because if I reread that book, like it's hands down no brainer. I would stick with my rating like 100%. I'm still very nervous about Iron Flame, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Fourth Wing, infinite stars. Yes, ma'am. Daughter of the Pirate King, I'm going to put under I vibed with these vibes in the moment. Another YA, super fun, piratey, fantasy romance. I thought the romance was perfect. I loved our main character. Our main character was such a spitfire and such a badass, and not in a way that made you kind of like sick of her or annoyed with her. That sometimes happens to me with YA books. I literally binge read it in one day. Like less than 24 hours, I had finished that book and given it 5 stars. I'm gonna put That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming under I vibed with these vibes in the moment as well because it's another spicy fantasy romance novella and it was just perfect. I read it at the perfect time. I really just enjoyed my read of it. So, okay, let me try to place the 3 graphic novels that I have in this section, which is crazy. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, but I did read quite a few of them this year. I try to sprinkle them through readathons so I don't get burnt out. And these were the ones that packed such an emotional punch for me. So Pilu of the Woods, I think I'm gonna put it with I vibed with these vibes in the moment because it's so sweet, so wholesome. I mean, you could say that about Mothkeeper as well, but it deserved 5 stars. Usually with graphic novels, I don't rate them because I tend to want to give all of them 5 stars. But this one, I said, I'm gonna break my rule of not rating graphic novels. It was perfection. The illustration style also was incredible. Then the other 2 graphic novels that I have were much more emotionally impactful for me. So Mothkeeper, I'm going to put under I lived the story with these characters. I was there because Kay O'Neill just crushes it with the emotional depth of her wholesome graphic novels. Every time I read from them, I am astonished at their storytelling power, but the Mothkeeper really resonated with me because I felt so seen. It's about our main character who takes on a new job that is very important in her society, but it can be extremely isolating, and that made me feel so seen because working from home for me can tend to feel very self-isolating, and then how our main character was coping or like lack thereof with their feelings and a lot of their maybe self-soothing habits. I also felt very seen. I'm gonna say The Magic Fish which is my last graphic novel in my 5 stars for this year, falls under the writing 8 and therefore so did I. I read this book for the Asian readathon in the summertime. I was crying. This book is so stunning. It is about a young Vietnamese boy. His parents came from Vietnam, like 1st generation. I guess he's 2nd generation. And his parents do speak English, but it's kind of broken. They're still learning. And he doesn't know how to come out to them as gay because he doesn't know how to communicate in Vietnamese words so that they understand. Oh my gosh. There's bookception because it does retell some classic fairy tales, like the Cinderella one really sticks out to me, and I think that there was a Little Mermaid kind of retelling as well in there, but they are the Vietnamese versions of those fairy tales. And I know that that sounds a little bit random, but it ties in so nicely to how our main character was reading and like trying to learn words and come out to his parents. Oh my gosh, it's so good. If you haven't heard of The Magic Fish, look it up. If you haven't read it yet, read it. Okay, now the books that are left are so funny because they're so different from each other. Let's do A Study in Drowning. I think I'm gonna put A Study in Drowning in I vibed with these vibes in the moment because that premise to the story is so unique. It's also a very dark academia vibe, and I read it in the fall, and so it just fits so nicely. The writing was beautiful though. I'm kind of torn between whether or not I want to move A Study in Drowning to the writing 8 and therefore so did I. I'm gonna leave it there for now, and when we do like a final reflection once everything is placed, we'll see if I want to move anything. And then, oh my gosh, Song of the Marked. Where do I even start with these books? The Shadows and Crowns series swiftly took over my entire life in the latter half of this year. I lived with these characters. I'm gonna put both Song of the Marked and Twist of the Blade, which are the first 2 in that series, under that category because I was there. If y'all saw those vlogs, the way that I cried in both of those. So if that says anything, I was emotionally attached. I still need to read books 4 and 5 of that series to complete it. The final book, Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin, even though it might be a little bit unhinged to put it under the writing 8 and therefore so did I, however, the way that Pam Godwin immersed us in, like, when were pirates around? The 1700s, the 1800s? I don't know. But the way that she did period writing so well, she was using the language, she was describing the attire, she was having realistic sea journeys in terms of timeline and what they were doing and all of these things. And yet she made it into a dark, so spicy romance. Pam Godwin might as well be a founding father of the dark romance genre because she is top tier. I need to read more from her because she actually has so many books out that are dark romance, and I fell in love with her with Sea of Ruin. I felt so unhinged giving that book 5 stars, non-stop reading it. Oh my gosh, the way it took over my life. But seriously, incredible. I also feel like this whole video I have been so flabbergasted talking about my favorite reads. In probably every clip I'm gonna have to cut out me going like this because this is how I feel about all of my 5-star reads, jumbled with my words. I just love these books so stinking much. If I were to recommend you any books to read, if you have similar reading taste to me, literally all of these. I think I do want to move A Study in Drowning into the writing 8 and therefore so did I. That is my final answer. But besides that, I'm pretty happy with this list. I hope that you all liked this video, friends. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. If you've read any of these and loved any of these, I would love to gush about them with you in the comments down below. Please let me know also what were some of your 5-star reads of 2023. I will catch you in the comments and I'll see you in my next one, friends.